Weather, heavy showers will move across Scotland, Northern Ireland and Northern England tonight. Scattered spells of rain for the south of England and Wales. Feeling breezy, a low of 4 degrees. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Holly Jones.
This is LBC. From Global, leading Britain's conversation, the Nigel Farage Show.
Mr. Nigel Farage.
Thank you, Donald. Good evening, everybody. And thank you, Donald, for being a Brexiteer, for backing it right from the very start. It's a big day because, you see, in 5 hours' time, we will, after 47 years, leave the European Union. Yes, sure, there'll be arguments, debates about what's to follow. But this is the big historic moment. We're in now, the final countdown. It's big stuff. And let's just remind ourselves why this is happening. Let's remind ourselves what happened at about 4:40 in the morning of the 24th of June, 2016. This was David Dimbleby announcing the result of the referendum.
Well, at 20 minutes to 5, we can now say the decision taken in 1975 by this country to join the common market has been reversed by this referendum to leave the EU. The British people have spoken, and the answer is we're out.
And here's the extraordinary thing. When David Cameron announced the referendum back in 2013, and as the general election of 15 happened and the referendum campaign itself started, at every stage of this, the Prime Minister, in fact, the establishment were clear. It's an in-out referendum. We're either in the EU or, to quote the Prime Minister, out completely. And yet, it has taken until the 31st of January 2020 for this to be enacted after over 3.5 years of the parliamentary equivalent of trench warfare. It has seen former Prime Ministers, Blair, Major, Brown, standing up and saying that basically the whole thing should be reversed. It's all been a terrible mistake. We've had stories about Russian money, all of which turned out to be baloney. And at one point, because a few friends of mine and myself had chatted with Paul McKenna ahead of the referendum, that we'd hypnotised the nation. I mean, you've never heard such rubbish in all your life. But it's happening. We are leaving tonight. It is a big historic moment. I would argue that it is, in terms of our constitution and indeed in terms of our position in the world, the most significant moment since Henry VIII took England out of the Church of Rome, and tonight we leave the Treaty of Rome. To me, well, I became, I suppose, obsessed with this subject back in the early 1990s. Sort of 1990 really got me going, and by 1992 I was out delivering leaflets, knocking on doors, campaigning, and the rest of my life, some would say, has been downhill ever since. So I put 27 years of my life into this. I can't even begin to tell you what this means to me today. And in an odd way, it's almost better after 3.5 years of agony, because this time last year, I wasn't sure it was actually going to happen at all, and it did seem to me that a second referendum was coming down the tracks. Now, I've been doing media today all day. I've been around almost every London studio, and the story, the Westminster narrative, is that so much of the country is really unhappy with what's happening, and yet I've met Remainers today who say to me, Nigel, I voted Remain because my life was quite comfortable, but you know what? We're a democracy. I accept it. And tonight, as I've come in tonight to LBC studios, the scenes out on the streets in Leicester Square, it's just going bonkers out there. I just met a coachload of people who come down from Barnsley this morning. I mean, they are just going for gold. And listen, boys and girls, please don't peak too soon. You seem to be enjoying yourself perhaps a little bit too much. But I see it, and I hear stories of fireworks parties, of get-togethers all over the country. I think there is a huge amount of celebration going on tonight. And even when I debated with Lord Mandelson this morning on Good Morning Britain on ITV, even Lord Mandelson said, look, it's not what I wanted, but it is happening. There will be no second referendum. So for him, the battle now is about the next stage. But this is the big historic break. It means the world to me. And I would suggest to you that this is the greatest moment in modern British history. But I want you to tell me, what does this moment mean to you? 0345 6060 973. Text to 84850. Tweet using the hashtag Farage and LBC at LBC. And of course, you can join us on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube and watch us if you want to. Let's go to Steve. A new caller to me from Southampton. Steve, good evening.
Nigel, such a pleasure to speak to you. Thank you. I was delivering Brexit leaflets, to leave 10 days before before the referendum.
Yes.
And I severed my clavicle delivering those leaflets. I had a terrible fall.
Gosh.
And bizarrely, it's taken 3.5 years to get my clavicle absolutely right. It's taken 3.5 years to leave. So it's come full circle for me.
I hope you don't blame me for the clavicle.
Not at all. I blame the canvas said, would you mind going to deliver these leaflets for me? But no, joking aside, I think the one thing that's really struck me, Nigel, is how many countries told us how awful it would be leaving.
Yeah.
But we would lose out. But they wouldn't give their sovereignty away. And there's been so little talk of sovereignty in Parliament. It's all been about economics.
Oh, it's GDP. GDP could be down by 0.1%.
Yeah.
And even if it was true, Steve, this vote wasn't about economic forecast, was it?
No, it wasn't about economics. It was about us taking back... They say taking back control, and then we would be derided for saying taking back control, when in fact all we want to do is to decide for ourselves if we want 1,600-watt Hoovers. I know that's a trivial thing, but it's just indicative of the sort of roller coaster of rules and regulations that we face. And I face in the medicines industry where I work. So many rules and regulations just drives me nuts. So, Nigel, thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Steve. And I'm very pleased your clavicle is better and that you can, no doubt, dance
Lovely to speak with you.
I hope you can dance a jig tonight.
I certainly can. My landlord is graciously taking 10% off the prices for an hour tonight at 11 o'clock.
Very good. Well, you go and enjoy it. Steve, thank you very much. And Ollie says, I'm in Parliament Square. He says the celebrations are building. It's a party atmosphere, a sense of hope and optimism for the future. Thank you for everything. Ollie, I'll be with you in Parliament Square. I'll be there from 9 o'clock right through that big moment at 11 o'clock. And my sense is a lot of people are beginning to gather down there. Gilly is calling from Bury St Edmunds. Gilly, good evening.
Hi, Nigel.
Good evening. So, what does this mean to you, Gilly?
Well, it's quite emotional because I joined UKIP in 1994 with my husband.
Right at the beginning, yeah.
Yeah, and we've leafleted, we've marched, we've done everything. And actually, I didn't actually think we'd get to this point. Sadly, my husband died 2 years ago.
I'm sorry.
So he hasn't actually seen this day. But I shall be opening a bottle of English champagne tonight.
Very good.
And celebrating with my
Now, you can't
son.
call it champagne because of EU rules, Gilly, so you have to call it sparkling wine, but I know what you mean.
Yeah.
So it's been a long journey for you, then?
Yes.
And how do you feel? Do you feel optimistic for the future in the way that I do?
Oh, God, yes.
Fantastic.
Yeah, always have been.
Fantastic. Well, Gilly, all I can say, as somebody who, UKIP was much of my life, and I was chairman of it, campaign manager of it, leader of it. Gilly, thank you. Let's go to Peterborough and speak to David. David, good evening.
Nigel, Sir Nigel, shall I say?
No. But go on.
It's Manjit with my Brexit turban on.
Right.
Nigel, what a joy to speak to you on a day like today. I'll tell you what, mate. This is the 3.5 years I've been waiting for this, and it's all come true, and it's all thanks to you. So hats off to you, mate. I really, really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. And David, let me ask you, a lot of people said that Brexit would be divisive within the country between the different communities. And, you're from the Sikh community. Isn't in a way this a chance for us to re-engage with the Commonwealth countries and indeed their descendants living in our country?
Well, this is exactly what I was going to say. We've ignored the biggest asset this country's had, the Commonwealth. We've got a Commonwealth which none of the European countries have got. And they love us, they respect us, and we've ignored them. And now's the chance to engage with them again. And the trading opportunities we've got with the Commonwealth and the rest of the world are phenomenal. But why can't people see that? Why do they just see Europe? I mean, this is a planet of so many countries, and all they can talk about is Europe.
I know.
There's the Commonwealth, you've got India, Asia, you've got Australia, Canada, Africa, and the Caribbean, all these wonderful countries. And all we seem to concentrate on is France and Germany and Europe, So I think this is going to be absolutely amazing. And I'll tell you what we're doing tonight.
Yeah.
We're going to have a traditional British meal. My wife, Linda, here is going to cook a great curry. We're having gin and tonic, beefeater gin. We're going to have Bombardier ale, Spitfire ale. I'm going to let a few fireworks off, and I'm going to put my Union Jack turban on, and we're going to have a
fantastic. I've seen that Union Jack turban before. It's quite a sight. Brilliant. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you. I'm going to Exeter to speak to Paul.
Hello, Nigel. Good evening.
Good evening.
Well, I'm 62 years of age, on to 63, and I was born into a proud country with a great history, and I feel now that I can, in my later years, live in a proud country with its independence, which should never have been lost in the first place.
Well, I'm calling it, Paul.
I should be opening a bottle of champagne tonight.
Good. Well, I'm calling it the greatest day in modern history.
Yeah. But a Brexit will not succeed unless we have people at the top who have full confidence in running this country. And that's, I would suggest, in 3 or 4 months' time, where you can step in if you see that Boris is becoming weak.
Well, Paul, let me just say this to you, right? You've raised that point. When I picked up the front page of the Times today, I was absolutely thrilled to see that Boris Johnson yesterday was talking about a Canada-style free trade deal. That's exactly the kind of route I want us to go down. In 2016, I was so relieved that we'd won the referendum. I was so, frankly, whacked by the previous years that I put into it. And I also believed the government when they told us that they would implement the will of the people. And it was perceived that I'd walked away. I'm going to make sure this time, Paul, that I absolutely comment consistently, constantly, on what goes on in this next 11 months. And
that's the important.
Yeah, no, I will.
Period. This is the important period.
No, I will.
This is the important period whereby we've got to play hardball. We want a strong fishing. We want strong. We do not a regulatory alignment, and we do not want. We're an independent country with a proud history. We're a trading country. We've been trading for over 1,000 years. And we can live on our own quite economically, but we've got to get confidence at the top, and that's where you come in. You've got to write a letter to Boris at some point and get his team around him who believe in this country. That's where the Americans
believe in Britain.
That's where the Americans do well, because whether it's Republic or Democrat,
they do believe.
They believe in their country. At the top.
Do you know, Paul, I was on with Ken Clarke earlier. I like Ken Clarke as a man. He's a nice person. He just doesn't think we're good enough.
He doesn't believe in this country.
No, that's right. He doesn't think we're good enough to govern ourselves. He thinks we're better off part of a big bloc, and I do. Paul, thank you for your call. Paul, another Paul on Facebook, doesn't feel the same way. He says, this is the beginning of the end of the United Kingdom. I don't agree, Paul, but hey, let's get some callers telling me why that might be the case. You're listening to The Nigel Farage Show on this historic day. It is now 6:15 and time for the news headlines with Holly Jones.
Britain is preparing to leave the EU at 11 o'clock tonight, with the Prime Minister calling it the dawn of a new era. Health officials are urgently trying to trace those who came into contact with 2 people diagnosed with coronavirus in the UK, the first confirmed cases. The pair had been staying at a hotel in York. A man has been charged with murder after the bodies of 2 women were found in a freezer in East London in April last year. LBC weather: heavy showers will move across Scotland, Northern Ireland and Northern England tonight. Scattered spells of rain for the south of England and Wales, a low of 4 degrees.
LBC Travel, I'm Dave Goff. On the M25 anti-clockwise, there are queues from junction 26 for Waltham Abbey to junction 24 for Potters Bar after an accident earlier. Anti-clockwise on the M25, there are also queues because of an accident between junction 21 for the M1 and junction 20 for Kings Langley, so a lane is closed. On the M25 anti-clockwise, there are also 18 miles of queues going from junction 9 for Leatherhead to Clackett Lane services because of the roadworks. In the centre of town, Whitehall is closed southbound from Horse Guards Road to Parliament Square because of a demonstration. It's very slow on the A3 northbound, cars breaking down at Roehampton Lane. And on the underground, there are severe delays on the Central Line and trains aren't stopping at Bond Street Station. That's because of an investigation.
This is LBC.
Traffic update with Gab McGrath. There's a cloggage on the D10 eastbound caused by a man running around with a sack of pork pies shouting, "First choice holidays from £45 a day." Police attended, but after hearing the deal, they wanted in on the action. Now there are 4 pork pie munchers on the loose shouting, "First choice holidays from £45 a day." Soon to be 5.
Ridiculous deals need ridiculous adverts. First choice. Ridiculously good value.
Offer is per person and on selected holidays. Minimum stay of 7 nights. Subject to limited availability. At all protected.
This is LBC.
What van carries over a tonne? What van has class-leading fuel economy? What van? The answer's in the question. The What Van Light Van of the Year 2020. The Vauxhall Combo Cargo. Limited stock now available for only £199 a month and £199 initial rental, excluding 20% VAT on a 2-year lease. Other rental periods available. Search Combo Cargo offer and hurry down to your local retailer. Vauxhall carries British business. Business users only. Initial rental of $198.98 plus 23 months at $198.98. Contract hire on Combo Cargo Edition L1 1.5 Turbo D 100 PS. 20,000 total contracted miles. Limited availability, subject to status, T's and C's, 18 plus. Price excludes 20% VAT. You will not own the vehicle. Vauxhall Finance PLC, trading as free to move lease.
How often should you think about your boiler? The correct answer is as little as possible. But if it's been playing up recently, it could be on its last legs. And at this time of year, well, that doesn't bear thinking about. But the good news is a reliable new Valent boiler comes with a guarantee of up to 10 years and could use 30% less gas than a hungry old boiler. Plus, right now, there's a £100 John Lewis voucher for the first 500 installations. Now that's comforting. To claim your voucher, just text radio to 60300 and we'll call you back. For full terms and conditions, visit valent.co.uk. Text messages charged at your standard network rate.
My lorry's already delivering on the low emission zone's tougher standards that come into effect across Greater London from the 26th of October 2020 to help clean up our toxic air. Diesel engine heavy lorries, buses, coaches, motorised caravans, horse boxes and large vans and minibuses all need to meet the low emission zone's new Euro 6 standard. Make sure you're on board with these changes, like me.
Search low emission zone to check your vehicle. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
You can't stop a sneeze. But with Dettol, you can help stop it spreading from surface to surface. Kill 99.9% of bacteria and cold and flu viruses living on your surfaces. Clean it, kill it, and help stop the spread of cold and flu with Dettol. See instructions on pack.
This is LBC, the Nigel Farage Show. Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag Farage on LBC.
In just a few hours, we are leaving the European Union. It is a huge historic moment, and I know a lot of people voted Remain, but I sense most of them now accept that it's happening. And I keep being asked by the media about divisions. I think we are coming together and accepting this is happening. Now, I'm going to say something I thought I'd never say, because I've not been that friendly towards Tony Blair, particularly over the course of the last 3.5 years. Listen to this carefully. I'd mentioned Peter Mandelson earlier. Listen to this really carefully. This is Tony Blair just a couple of hours ago. He said, Brexit is happening, and our attitude now should be to strive to make the best of it, to approach it with determined optimism, not looking over our shoulders in unrequited longing for what was. Tony Blair is saying it's happening, let's make the best of it. And I, at last, take my hat off to Tony Blair and say that is good, because that is part of this healing process. It makes a massive difference if people like him and Mandelson and others understand it. As for Lord Adonis, well, I don't know quite what to say, really, because he says he won't even use the new 50p coin that's been made, and he looks like a member of the Flat Earth Society. The BBC coverage, by the way, I'm watching on my screen, it's wall-to-wall, a pro-EU demo in Holyrood. There's about 30 people there. I tell you what, BBC, come into London. Come and see the pubs. They're overflowing onto the streets. There's a mass celebration going on, even if you at the BBC are in mourning, not just for Brexit, but for the fact your organisation will at some point before too long be finished. At least I hope so. Let's go to Watford and speak to Alex. Alex, good evening.
Good evening, Nigel. I can hear you're ecstatic.
No, I am. And I know that not everybody is, Alex, but do you not think what Tony Blair said is very significant?
Well, if I can just say this quickly, Nigel.
Yeah, sure.
I spoke to you 3.5 years ago. It must be 4 years ago now.
Okay.
Just after you left UKIP.
Yep.
And I said you'd done more damage to this country than Oliver Cromwell.
I remember you. I remember you. How nice to speak to you again. This is marvellous.
Yes, and you've done nothing to disappoint me.
Oh, good.
Why on earth did you walk out on the last day of Parliament and say what you said? Why couldn't you just said thanks but no thanks and walked out?
What did I say, Alex?
Well, I thought you was a bit insulting, and I was a bit embarrassed.
What did I say that was insulting?
Right, well...
it's funny, you see. People make their minds up that I've been insulting when actually I haven't.
Well, can't you remember what you said, or did you get some mist in front of you?
I know exactly what I said. I said, we're not coming back, we've passed the point of no return, and we hope to be an inspiration to other countries. And I said, I love Europe, but I hate the EU. That's what I said.
Well, I love the EU, Nigel, so we're poles apart, aren't we, really?
Well, you may love the EU, but Alex, we, in a few hours' time, are leaving. Do you accept that?
Congratulations, well done. I shake your hand.
All right.
You fought like a lion.
All right. Well, do you know what? Again, even that is part of the healing process, Alex, and I thank you for ringing me up and saying that. And I genuinely mean that. Thank you. So you see, actually what we're hearing, folks, and he was, clearly, I could tell, I did remember him saying I'd done more damage than Cromwell, but you actually could hear that he's not happy, but he's prepared to say, Nigel, I shake your hand, well done, we're going to move on. This is so important. It's so important. We just have got to get rid of the agony and division of the last 3.5 years. And I really sense tonight, big time, people are coming together and it's happening. In fact, I can't remember sitting in this chair and feeling that so strongly ever since I've been at LBC. There is a big positional shift that is going on in the country today. That's my feeling. We are going long distance to speak to Richard in Vancouver Island. Richard, can I just ask you, are you a neighbour of Harry and Meghan's?
Absolutely, I am. It's only about a mile away.
Oh, really? I was teasing, really. But
and I think I figured out that they were actually Remainers and they didn't want to stay in the UK, so that's why they left.
Well, it might be. I think there may be some other problems there too, Richard. But so you're an expat living in Vancouver, yeah?
Well, yeah, in Victoria, North Saanich, British Columbia, yeah. And I just got to say, it's just so awesome to be speaking to you today. You know, what's happened in the last 3.5 years, what you've done, it is just beyond like anybody could imagine that somebody could take on and do, and thank you for that. But, you know, I'm 55. I remember...
You poor old thing, Richard. I said, you poor old thing, so am I.
Yeah, no, it's, some days it feels bad. But a childhood friend growing up in Bristol was David. His father was Lord Cox.
Yep.
The Labour chief whip.
Yep.
And I remember Tony Benn coming to the house very often and debating with Michael the whole, we should not go into the EU. So, it's kind of, for me, it's a come for full circle thing. I left the UK when Blair was elected. I'm off the sinking ship. I'm out of here. I'm gone. I've been here ever since. It's been great. But I remember very vividly those conversations between Michael Cox and Tony Benn. And one night,
Ben, of course, for those that don't know, Richard, Tony Benn was a passionate Leaver, wasn't he?
Yeah, he didn't want to go in at all.
No.
But the ice cream van came around one night, and David and myself, Michael's son, were like, "Oh, take us out for ice cream, Mr. Ben." So we go out, and here comes the little truck coming down the road with the chimes playing. And it's from, like, Sodoli and Sons. First question out of Tony's mouth was, is this English ice cream or is it made in Europe? And he wasn't going to buy it until the guy confirmed that it was made locally, type of thing.
Well, there you are. That was old-fashioned one-nation socialism, I think. So, Richard, a big day. And how do you think Canadians will view today?
I think, if they're smart, which I'm not so sure with the leader that we have in Ottawa at the moment, that they would be sniffing a trade deal for sure.
Yes.
We have a lot of natural resources.
Although there is a trade deal. There is a trade deal on goods in place already, of course, with the EU, though it took a long time to negotiate, didn't it?
Yeah, but I think there'd be an opportunity to expand. We keep hearing, that our logging industry on the West Coast here is in dire straits. So they've been on strike for over 6 months. People are losing their houses. They're saying that the export markets aren't there, the traditional export markets to China and the US. Well, let's shift to the other coast and let's ship it all to the UK and Europe.
No. New opportunities. Richard, thank you very much indeed. Howard says, I wish people would understand the EU and Europe are not the same thing. Howard, here. William is a first-time caller to this station of LBC from Scania. William, good evening to you.
Hello, good evening.
Welcome. So what does this moment mean to you?
Well, really interested, actually, in, the future of Britain, being half British and also owning a company. Well, my parents own a company in Britain, and I'm just interested because Swedish media portrays Brexit as a very negative thing.
Yes, of course.
And I'm wondering, maybe you could change my mind about that, because I believe that it could be negative, but I'd like to, hear your point. So maybe...
William, I can tell you one thing. The media in all 28 countries has been, from the early days of people joining, all pro-EU. Literally all pro-EU. Almost no scepticism in France or Germany or elsewhere in Scandinavia. Sweden, I came and did an event in Stockholm 3 years ago, and normally when I turn up in a European capital, I get a lot of coverage. I came to Stockholm, literally nobody even wanted to cover the fact that I'd turned up there with a big group and with a former president of the Czech Republic. Swedish media is incredibly biased. Swedish media doesn't even report crime accurately, let alone talk about the EU accurately. And I would say this. Sweden made a big, bold, good decision not to join the euro. They had a referendum on it. It was overwhelmingly rejected. And I think the answer here is, William, that independent sovereign nation states can trade together, cooperate together. They can have free trade areas. They can do all those things without political alignment, without the free movement of people. And I look at the rise of the Swedish Democrats, for example, a party in Sweden who came from pretty dubious roots. And I just get the feeling, William, and you may disagree with this, but I'm going to ask you, I just get the feeling that Brexit may be the beginning of a whole new conversation that'll take place across the whole of Europe.
Yeah, I actually do agree with you on that. I'm not sure, it's nothing that I would call positive personally, because I come from a pro-European family, businessmen. We own an international business. But just when you look at, Brexit, and that the companies are pulling out and firing people and moving people to Dublin, I mean,
William,
is that really
William, there are loads of firms coming in. William, new investments coming in. William, property prices have risen 5% in London in January alone. William, loads of companies are relocating into London. We were promised 500,000 jobs were gone. Employment is now at record levels. Don't believe all the negativity that you hear. It's going to be great. It's going to be huge. That's my view. This is the Nigel Farage Show. It's 6:30. Time for the news with Holly Jones.
The UK is entering its final few hours of being a member of the European Union. At 11 o'clock tonight, Britain will officially leave the bloc before a transition period. Pro-Brexit parties are taking place, while candlelit vigils are being held by Remain supporters. Health officials are trying to trace anyone who came into contact with 2 people who have been diagnosed with coronavirus in the UK. The family members have been staying in York when they became unwell. 83 British people are being taken to be quarantined on the Wirral after arriving back to the UK on a plane from Wuhan in China. Officers have fired shots at a vehicle that breached security at President Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort in Florida. 2 people have been taken into custody, but it's not known yet if anyone's been injured. The president wasn't in the resort at the time. LBC weather: heavy showers will move across Scotland, Northern Ireland and Northern England tonight. Scattered spells of rain for the south of England and Wales, a low of 4 degrees.
This is LBC. After 3.5 years.
Dare to dream that the dawn is breaking on an independent, united kingdom. Let June the 23rd go down in our history as our Independence Day.
With the country and government still wrestling over the result, was it ever going to happen?
The ayes to the right, 202. The noes to the left, 432.
Theresa May has just suffered the largest ever defeat of any British Prime Minister in history. Where does her government go from here?
But after election 2019, finally, some clarity.
Let's get Brexit done.
The final countdown is on to Brexit. Tonight, join me, Nick Ferrari, for a special programme on Brexit night. And if Parliament won't play the bongs of Big Ben, then I will. Tonight from 10 on LBC.
I've always
loved a kitchen experiment, especially smoothies. I've blended all sorts of mad combinations. Strawberry and charcoal, broccoli and chocolate. Not my best, that. But when I test blenders in the Witch Lab, it's not about flavour, it's about performance. Our tests use proper tough stuff, hard ice, strong veg, rough nuts. And the blenders that can hack it are the only ones we recommend for your kitchen.
Which tests harder so you can buy smarter. Visit which.co.uk.
At Argos, our new range is out now, online and in our new catalogue. Transform your home with our new stylish furniture and homewares range. And join in the fun with this season's latest tech and toys. With Argos, you're good to go. Subject to availability.
My lorry's already delivering on the low emission zone's tougher standards that come into effect across Greater London from the 26th of October 2020 to help clean up our toxic air. Diesel-engined heavy lorries, buses, coaches, motorised caravans, horse boxes and large vans and minibuses all need to meet the low emission zone's new Euro 6 standard. Make sure you're on board with these changes, like me.
Search low emission zone to check your vehicle. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
This is not a cat. This is not a rocket. And this is not a sale. That's right. At Smarty Mobile, we're not having a sale. While others are slashing prices, we're introducing our best ever new plans. Take our new 30 gig data SIM for just £10 a month. With unlimited calls and texts and no speed restrictions, credit checks or contract tying you down, why shop around? New plans, great value. Now that's Smarty. Grab yours today. Search Smarty Mobile. See smarty.co.uk for terms.
January is tough enough without a broken boiler. Keep your home warm and working this winter with 2 years interest-free credit and your boiler installed by one of our expert engineers. Plus, you'll get a 5-year British Gas warranty. And we can even quote by video call after work or on weekends. Get a quote by the 29th of February and you can also get £200 off a new boiler or £400 off for our existing home care customers. Search British Gas New Boiler. Conditions apply.
We live in an age where you can stream any box set instantly. But staying on top of our pensions is anything but instant. PensionBee can transfer most old pensions together into one simple online plan. So you can manage your pension on your smartphone as simply as streaming that box set. Download the app or visit pensionbee.com today.
Authorised and regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority. Capital at risk.
Leading Britain's conversation. LBC, The Nigel Farage Show.
Yes, this is Nigel Farage with you here on LBC on a Friday, exceptionally on this historic evening. And Andrew Pearce will take over from me at 7. And at 10 o'clock, Nick Ferrari will be in from 10 till midnight. And he will cover that moment over the historic 11 o'clock when we leave the European Union after 47 years of membership of the European experiment. Your messages fascinate me. One is from Mike on Twitter. He says, Nigel Farage is agreeing with Tony Blair. Behold these times, guys. History is taking place. Yeah, it is taking place, Mike. And there is now, I've felt it as the whole day's gone on, a sense of us coming together. Yes, Blair finally got with the programme, says Gillian in Darlington on Twitter. Nigel, I'm still on the fence. I don't trust either of them. John, not trusting politicians is a very natural human emotion. I completely understand you. And some don't trust Boris. Max says 11 months of more transition. That's not Brexit. Max, if Boris keeps to the promises that in today's Times newspaper, it will be Brexit. I know it's an if, and we've got to hold him to his word. But if he does, wow, that to me would be incredibly exciting and potentially great for the country. Jay from Stoke-on-Trent, I voted Remain, but I embrace today. We must move on from being so divisive. Work to make it a success. Thank you, Nigel, for having conviction in your beliefs. Let us go to Mark, who is calling from Ross-on-Wye. Mark, good evening.
Good evening, Nigel. Can you hear me?
I certainly can. Welcome to the show. Thanks. How do you feel tonight?
Ecstatic. And also, I can only say congratulations and a thank you. We have finally managed to actually do this. And,
yes.
In the last 3 years where we had the media being extremely pro-Remain and giving platforms to maniacs in plenty of cases, you can't help but think we got a problem. But thankfully, we've finally managed to get this over the line. And I can only thank you and say well done. And also, this may be unpopular, I don't think you should be knighted.
Okay.
Simply because if that puts you in the same club as Nick Clegg, I think it would be an insult.
Well, that would be a big worry, wouldn't it, Mark? No, I completely understand that. Mark, thank you. Mark, they're ecstatic from Ross on why. Now, Gordon from Hampstead says, for me, Nigel, it means a chance to wear my Union Jack cufflinks. It's about time. Gordon never stopped me. It's normally socks with me, but it's actually a Union Jack tie today. And what is wrong with that? What is wrong with that? Because what's happened is they've attempted to impose a different flag on our nation. They even put it on all the car number plates. I was expected in the European Parliament to stand up attention to it. I never, ever did, I can tell you. Chris is calling from Abinger in Surrey. Chris, good evening.
Good evening, Nigel. How are you?
I'm pretty happy bunny, Chris, really.
Yeah.
Of course I am.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it took some believing, but hey, it's happening.
I've just phoned up to congratulate you. It's so good this has happened. It's taken a lot of time, but you never underestimate the tenacity of the British people.
Absolutely.
We will make a success of this so well that the world will bow down before us.
Well, I don't know whether they'll bow down before us, but we'll do well. And Chris, can I ask you, I've got to move to a breaking news story, but Chris, can I ask you just very quickly, how are you celebrating or commemorating tonight?
Well, I shall now recite you the scene from Skyfall between M and the PM, where she quotes Tennyson, which goes something like this. We are not now that strength which in old days moved earth and heaven. That which we are, one equal temper of heroic hearts, laid weak by time and fate, but strong in will to strive, to seek, to find, and not to yield.
Well, I must say, a bit of Tennyson is no bad thing. And Chris, thank you for bringing a bit of culture to this show. We've been very short of it in recent times. Now, we're getting reports of shots being fired at a vehicle that breached a security perimeter at President Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort in Palm Beach, Florida. Got across to our USA correspondent, Simon Mark. Simon, good evening.
Nigel, good evening to you. Bit of drama at the President's resort down in Florida, Mar-a-Lago. We should say from the outset that he's not there. He's in Washington at the moment, but he will be there tonight. He's due to be spending the weekend in Mar-a-Lago. A car, a black SUV, was being pursued by Florida Highway Patrol. We don't know why it was being pursued, some kind of a high-speed chase. And the car breached the main security gate and then a second security checkpoint at Mar-a-Lago, at which point the security personnel on the ground at the President's estate opened fire. We believe that the two occupants of the car were both women. They fled the vehicle and were later taken into custody after police put a helicopter up above Mar-a-Lago to locate them. The vehicle is now obviously in custody as well, and an investigation is beginning into whether this was simply a car being pursued in a completely unrelated manner that decided it was going to divert into the President's estate, or whether there was malign intent here and actually there was some sort of premeditated effort to breach security at Mar-a-Lago. But obviously dramatic events, shots being fired at Mar-a-Lago just a matter of hours before President Trump is due to depart Washington and head there.
And very quickly, Simon, if I may, on the impeachment process, I hear that it's sort of about to come to an end. Is that accurate or not?
I think the final nail's been knocked into the coffin just in the last few minutes, Nigel. Senator Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, who was the last sort of fence-sitting Republican who had not yet indicated where she stood on the issue of whether witnesses should be called. She has now said that she is a no. So the impeachment trial is back underway in the Senate. Closing arguments beginning now by both sides, and then there will be the vote, we think, later today. today, possibly over the weekend, about whether witnesses should be called or not. But it's absolutely clear the Democrats do not have the votes. The White House has twisted arms, threatened people with the fury of a president who would feel betrayed if he was indeed turned against by some of those wavering Republicans. So this whole thing could be over with a vote to acquit as early as today. There's some suggestion it might all drag on into the middle of next week. But look, the ultimate outcome, as you and I both know very well, is absolutely preordained here.
Absolutely. Many thanks, Simon Marks. And, well, a good day for President Trump. The impeachment trial about to end. And, of course, Brexit happening, which is what he always wanted. I am staying in America because I'm going to Atlanta, Georgia, to speak to Michael, who's a new caller to LBC. Michael, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon here. It is right now 2:45 Eastern time. First time caller, and I'm going to tell you, I saw bits and pieces of your speech at the EU. So I actually went yesterday online, and I couldn't call you yesterday, but I wanted to. I went online yesterday and saw your speech in its entirety, including when they cut you off.
Yes.
As I'm sitting there watching it, I am I'm on the 9th floor. I am laughing my butt off because what you said was so, you were having so much fun and you were dead on the money. And you look at the Europeans that were there, they were stone-faced and in shock. And I was just, it was fantastic.
At least you enjoyed it. The lady in the chair.
I thought it was great. I thought it was great. The ties, the flags, and listen, I didn't tell this to your main guy. I work for a foreign consulate here in the United States.
Okay.
And I'm not going to say which one. And
please.
I can tell you, the Europeans, they don't have humor. I've been here 33 years. And the consulate. And I'm going to tell you, it's dead fake. And one thing you got to be taken into account now, this is going to happen. You're going to find out that you're going. No, come back, please.
Is that your?
Find out that,
is that your dog you're talking to, Michael?
No. A colleague just came in. And I just wanted to know that I was talking to you. I can tell you that when it comes to the Great Britain and England and the British having an event, I can tell you that effective today, not many Europeans are going to. It's going to be almost like what happened in South Africa. They're going to boycott events, but that's neither here or there. There's no bearing on that because you can live without them. And, like you said, you're still going to have bonds to the EU.
We're going to be friends, Michael. We're going to be friends. We're going to be neighbours. But what we don't want...
You're singing to the choir.
What we don't want are a bunch of people with a sense of humour that looks like they're chewing wasps, telling us what we can and can't do. And that's what you saw in the chamber. Michael, got to love you and leave you. Thank you. You're listening to the Nigel Farage Show here on LBC at 6:45 and time for the news headlines with Holly Jones.
The Prime Minister says the country will enter into a new era at 11 o'clock tonight when Britain leaves the EU. Health officials say a hotel in York where 2 people diagnosed with coronavirus were staying poses a minimal risk of infection to members of the public. Authorities say officers have fired shots at a vehicle that breached security at Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort in Florida, but the president wasn't there at the time. LBC weather: heavy showers will move across Scotland, Northern Ireland and Northern England tonight. Scattered spells of rain for the south of England and Wales, a low of 4 degrees.
LBC Travel, I'm Dave Goff. There are delays on the M40 southbound. All traffic's being held because of an accident just after junction 3 for Loudwater. On the M25 anti-clockwise, there are queues from junction 26 for Waltham Abbey to junction 24 for Potters Bar after there was an accident earlier on. On the M25 anti-clockwise, there are also queues from junction 14 for Heathrow to junction 12 for the M3 after an accident earlier. Staying anti-clockwise in the M25, there are queues from junction 8 for Reigate to Clackett Lane services. That's because of the roadworks. In the centre of town, Whitehall stays closed southbound from Horse Guards Road to Parliament Square because of a demonstration, so there are queues there. And there are severe delays on the Central Line. That's after there was an investigation earlier on.
Coming up at 7 on LBC, Andrew Pearce.
We're just hours away from Britain's historic exit from the European Union. Join me as we start the countdown to that crucial hour.
Andrew Pearce on LBC.
Martin here loves being his own boss, but staying on top of all the tax rules used to drive him up the stud wall. This 31st of January self-assessment deadline, however, Martin won't be hitting the roof. Just a few buttons. He's using QuickBooks Self-Employed to make sure his tax bill is all above board. It tracks income and expenses, so he always knows what he owes. You could say he smashed it.
Visit quickbooks.co.uk for details. Intuit QuickBooks.
Oak Furnitureland's end of January sale with huge savings on solid hardwood furniture is online and in-store now. Hurry, must end Sunday.
You can always trust that song about a little shark to get the kids in the bath. But all it takes is a bit of faulty plumbing to set off the bedtime waterworks. Thankfully, at trustedtrader.com, you can hunt out plenty of vetted, reviewed, reliable professionals in an abundance of trades. Like a plumber who'll rescue bath time. And just like that, it's safe to go back in the water.
The spacious new Vauxhall Vivaro is big on cargo space, so you won't fill it up as often. It also has class-leading fuel economy, so you, won't fill it up as often. The new Vauxhall Vivaro. Limited stock now available for only £229 a month and £229 initial rental, excluding 20% VAT on a 2-year lease. Other rental periods available. Search Vivaro offer and hurry down to your local retailer. Vauxhall carries British business. Business users only. Initial rental of £228.96 plus 23 months at £228.96. Contract hire on new Vivaro edition L1 H1 1.5 Turbo D 100 PS. 20,000 total contracted miles. Limited availability, subject to status, T's and C's, 18 plus. Price excludes 20% VAT. You will not own the vehicle. Vauxhall Finance PLC. Trading as free to move lease.
Ever dreamt of running your own business? It may be easier to achieve than you think. With a franchise, you start with a proven business model and the support of an established brand. Visit the British and International Franchise Exhibition on the 31st of January and the 1st of February at Olympia, London. Meet a wide range of franchise brands, benefit from expert advice, and take the next step towards being your own boss. Get your free tickets today at franchisetickets.co.uk.
My lorry's already delivering on the low emission zone's tougher standards that come into effect across Greater London from the 26th of October 2020 to help clean up our toxic air. Diesel-engined heavy lorries, buses, coaches, motorised caravans, horse boxes and large vans and minibuses all need to meet the low emission zone's new Euro 6 standard. Make sure you're on board with these changes, like me.
Search low emission zone to check your vehicle. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
This is the sound of a Halifax customer who used to worry he wasn't saving enough, but is now saving the change every time he hops on a bus. Switch on Save the Change, and when you use your Halifax Visa debit card, we'll round up to the nearest pound and put the difference into your chosen Halifax savings account.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC.
Well, here we are, getting closer and closer. The clock is ticking. We are nearing the final countdown to us leaving the European Union, and I'm asking you how you're feeling about it, and the sense I'm getting is that long-term, passionate Brexiteers are ecstatic. But the other thing that perhaps is even more important is I'm getting the sense that there are those who back Remain, and some like Tony Blair, who've been incredibly obstinate about this, that are now getting on board and saying, OK, the country is changing course after 47 years, let's get together and make a success of it. I have to say, I can't think of anything Tony Blair said in 25 years I've liked, but I really do like that. Brian is a first-time caller from Twickenham. Brian, good evening to you.
Good evening.
Good evening. Welcome to the show. And welcome to LBC. So, how are you feeling about the events of a few hours' time?
I'm feeling full of contrition, really.
Contrition?
I do want to apologise.
When you say apologise, were you one of those people, Brian, that simply couldn't accept the referendum result?
I was a very vocal Remain and even People's Vote campaigner for a long time.
Were you?
And I believe it is time for us to turn over a new leaf. But for that to happen, I do believe that Remainers like myself need to step up to the plate and express full contrition for the way we behaved post-2016. Because the truth is, the UK won't leave the EU today. we left in June 2016, and I should have accepted that.
Yeah, well, morally we did, Brian, didn't we? Because it was a vote that we were told would be implemented. Can I by the way, thank you for coming on and saying that. I mean, it's a remarkable phone call, and this is a huge part of the healing process. Can I ask you, what was it about the referendum result that made you so angry that you wanted to try and overturn it?
Well, I'm a scientist. I have seen the fruits of European cooperation, and I was afraid of losing that. And I acted like a plum. And I mean, do I still love Europe? Yes. Do I still think that maybe you're a bit of a Trump sycophant who slightly resembles Kermit the Frog? Yes. But am I sorry for the way I acted? Yeah, I acted like an absolute plum.
Okay, Brian, remarkable phone call. I'll take the personal hit, because the cause of a unified country is much greater, so I won't respond to it. Well, that was interesting, wasn't it? I mean, he clearly doesn't think we should be leaving, or doesn't like the fact we're leaving, but he accepts it. Interesting. Alan is calling from Cheshire. Alan, good evening.
Yeah, well, I accept the decision, but I don't accept that everything's going to be bright and rosy. I'm really fascinated to know where you think that the country makes its worth by its industry. And at the moment, there's hardly any growth in Europe. China's on the way down, and all of a sudden we're going to go all on the way up. Would you tell me where our growth's going to come from, and what sort of percentage do you think it is?
Alan,
say over the next 5 years, what's the percentage of growth going to be?
Alan, I'm not going to be like the Bank of England and make some cretinous guesstimate. No.
Everything's going to be rosy.
Alan, I want to say this to you, right? I'll tell you what I think the biggest benefit of Brexit is. A renewed self-confidence in ourselves, in our country, a belief in ourselves as a people and our ability to govern ourselves. And you know something? Economics is as much about confidence as it is about anything else.
I think if half the country would disagree with you, and I think that also, the country needs to get wealthier to get people out of the poverty line. And, I'd like to know, do you think it's going to be 1%, 2% growth over the next 5 years?
Alan, only idiots make economic forecast projections, because all the people that call themselves experts, they all get it wrong.
But you're saying on one hand, it's going to be a fantastic time. I'd like to know what that fantastic time is going to be.
And ask me to make some ridiculous prediction that will be wrong. Any prediction I make will be wrong. Any prediction the Bank of England makes will be wrong. All these predictions are always wrong. Alan, I think we can become competitive. I know we can become more competitive outside the European Union's rulebook. There's a massive world out there we can re-engage with, and I am confident for the future. Now,
yeah, I'll make a note on the Trump situation where you said, thanks for him supporting us all this time. You need to be very naive to think that he wouldn't, because obviously America are going to favour deals with us here rather than Europe.
President Obama, his predecessor, came to London in the referendum in a dramatic intervention and told us to vote Remain.
Well, I'm saying about Trump. You'd be naive to say that he wouldn't say the opposite. Because he's a pure businessman.
Well, there you go, Alan. A pure businessman. And you know what? Most entrepreneurs that I've met think leaving the EU is one of the best things that could ever happen to our economy. And most corporates think we should remain. They are different mindsets. Alan, I'm going to move on. Going to go to Chester to speak to Dan, another brand new caller to LBC. Welcome, Dan.
Thank you, Nigel. It's great to be on the show, and it's great to speak to you. And I have to tell you, I'm very, very happy about this.
Good.
I live in the northwest of England, but I'm actually from Bulgaria. I was born on the other side of the Iron Curtain, as a citizen in the Soviet Union. And the EU began to remind me gradually over time of this insidious organization that was diluting national identity. And we have to understand, people have to be very, very, very proud of their countries. And I say this as somebody from Europe, from Bulgaria, from Eastern Europe. England is an amazing country. Great Britain is a fantastic union of nations. And they have so much pride and so much identity. And they can absolutely work as a global leader without needing to be a member of this silly political club. The EU, if it was just a trade agreement,
be fine.
Fantastic.
Be fine. Trade, cooperation, friendship. Dan, Bulgaria joined the European Union relatively recently. Do you think it's been a good thing for Bulgaria?
No, Nigel, it's been an absolutely terrible thing, and I will tell you why. Bulgaria is a small country with inexperienced politicians, inexperienced businessmen. Obviously, when it was part of the Soviet Union, well, not technically the Soviet Union, but under the Warsaw Pact, everything was assigned to it. When it joined the EU, greedy Western businesses, threw more money than people were used to, bought up all the land, bought up all the successful business in Bulgaria, like the rose fields, the mining. So all the natural wealth of Bulgaria is now flowing to Germany, to the Western nations.
Do you know what, Dan?
And
it's the same story everywhere.
Do you know what? It's really, really sad to see it.
Yeah, Dan, the EU is good for really big businesses, for really big banks and really big politicians, and a nightmare for all the rest of us. Dan, thank you. David, my final comment says, I can't believe I'm going to get what I actually voted for. Isn't that remarkable in a democracy? Well, folks, we are now absolutely approaching that moment. In just a few hours' time, I'm going to be there in Parliament Square. Very, very excited about it. I fought for this all my life. I thought I was going to become the patron saint of lost causes. I couldn't believe that anybody would ever really support this, but we are now in the final countdown. Tonight has been so exciting. So many of you, Remainers now accept it. Maybe we can all get behind the Union Jack again and start to believe in our country. Not the European Union flag. No more Guy Verhofstadt. No more any of it. We're going to be free. We're going to be independent. It's gonna be great. Isn't it, Andrew Pearce?
It certainly is. And how on earth do I follow that? But what a person to follow on an historic night tonight, Nigel. Great show, and I will see you later, of course.
You certainly will.
In Parliament Square, and I will join the service. And coming up throughout the programme, we're going to be going up and down the country to see how Brexit is being marked in your part of the world. We're also going to be talking to Norman Tebbit, who was Margaret Thatcher's Tory chairman. We're going to be speaking to the Brexit Party's Richard Tice, and we're going to be speaking above all to you. How are you going to celebrate tonight? Maybe you're not going to celebrate. If you are a Remainer, are you reconciled finally to this historic moment in our history? We are finally leaving the European Union. Nigel's celebrating, and so am I. I hope you are too. Join me, Andrew Pearce on LBC. That's all coming up next.